All right, leave it up to Arpon Basu to hit up with the newest scoop in regards to Montreal Canadiens prospect talk. I was about to say trade talk, but no, this is the prospect discussion because Arpon Basu's latest article on The Athletic goes over what he's hearing about the Montreal Canadiens ahead of their 5th overall pick at the 2024 draft. Pictured is defenseman of the OHL Saginaw Spirit, Zayne Parekh, as well as Medicine Hat Tigers forward Cayden Lindstrom. Two guys on very separate sides of the Montreal Canadiens fan discussions as to whom the team will draft. But in this video, what I wanted to do was go over a bunch of these extra notes, because as Basu writes about, there's a lot of things that he's hearing in regards to the Canadiens, whom they are leaning towards, whom they could draft, and whom they're actually interested in. Because I'll say it right here, based off of some of these thoughts, a lot of what the Canadiens seem to want in this draft may not align with what you would immediately think, at least based off of what we have been discussing here on YouTube, and what else has been talked about in different forums, subreddits, radio hits, etc. So, to help us out with this Athletic piece, because The Athletic is paid for material, we're going over onto the Beefiest Bison R Habs Reddit post, because what this user did was they posted the Arpon Basu Athletic article and then provided some bullet points in the comments section below. Let's go out there and talk about each of these 5 bullet points, starting out with the first one. Basu says that if Cayden Lindstrom and Ivan Demidov are available at number 5, he guesses that the Montreal Canadiens would lead Lindstrom. So, this could very well be seen as a Matvei Mishkov situation all over again, but a little bit different, because Ivan Demidov is the guy that I think a lot of people are sort of projecting as the second, third best prospect in the draft, second or third best forward prospect for sure. The only question is, where are the Chicago Blackhawks, Columbus Blue Jackets, and Anaheim Ducks going to go? Are they going to go defenseman? Are they going to take a Levshunov if he's there, a Sam Dickinson, or a Zayne Parekh, or a Ziv Buium? Lots of defensemen at this crop of guys. It kind of reminds me of 2018. But when it comes to the Canadiens pick, a lot of people have been speculating, yeah, it's got to be a forward. There are already too many defensemen. We know the Canadiens can use some extra top-end skill up front, so if it's Cayden Lindstrom, the guy that has been linked to Montreal for most of the offseason, then that would be expected, right? If it's Demidov who is available, then he would be seen as one of the top guys, because he was supposed to be a second overall caliber asset, but because some of these other teams might value defense more, maybe Demidov slips a little bit, plus the Russian factor and everything. It's always something you have to think about, same with Mishkov last year. But with Arpon Basu saying that the Canadiens, if they have the choice, they would choose Lindstrom over Demidov, it kind of puts a lot of emphasis on Montreal's desire for size nowadays. We have been seeing this ever since Kent Hughes took helm, but keeping around guys like Hayden Gooley, Logan Mailloux, taking David Reinbacher, taking Juraj Slafkovsky, acquiring Kirby Dach, the Canadiens have been built with size in mind the past little while here, and Cayden Lindstrom over Demidov certainly aligns with that. Of course, size isn't the only thing that makes a prospect worth taking, but just to hear all the stuff that we had heard about Cayden Lindstrom, how he likes Montreal's players and how he would like to be a Canadian, etc., etc., it doesn't surprise me that Montreal would be leaning Lindstrom, even if Ivan Demidov is available on the board. On this regard, though, Basu says it's unlikely that both will be there versus neither, but if they're both gone, he does think that the Canadiens will look towards a defenseman. So okay, that also answers one of our questions from before, whether or not the Montreal Canadiens will go full panic mode and just take a Beckett Sinecki or a Berkly Catton or whomever else, or a TJ Ginla, if you have both Demidov and Lindstrom taken in the top 4. Now, let's just go out there and assume Macklin, Celebrini number 1, and then let's say Lindstrom or Demidov goes second or third or whatever, and then 4th overall it's Levshunov. From this point on, the Montreal Canadiens have a choice of taking one of these forwards that we have been talking about, a Berkly Catton or a TJ Ginla, or they could go the Sam Dickinson route, they could go the Ziv Buium route, they could go Zayne Parekh. What's the scoop here? Arpon Basu says that the Montreal Canadiens like Buium and Parekh, both guys that we have made Why I Want videos about in the 2024 season. pretty much these guys are good offensive defensemen. Zayne Parekh is arguably the most dynamic defenseman of the entire draft. Offensively, he is so good. His four-way mobility is outstanding, arguably the best in the draft. And when you talk about what he could be at the NHL level, if you have a guy like Parekh running your power play, honestly, you don't really need a guy like Hutson anymore. Now, of course, having both of them would be fantastic. Having one on one power play and one on the other sounds amazing too, but honestly, I feel like both Hutson and Parekh would exhibit top power play-like potential, so maybe having them both on the first unit would be a lot more appropriate there. It also would make it a lot easier for a guy like Cayden Lindstrom or Reinbacher, because unfortunately these guys don't really have the offensive ceiling, you could say, that any of these other guys do. But Zayne Parekh is arguably, if not definitively, the best offensive defenseman of the draft. He's awesome at skating, he can make plays, he shoots well, he scores well, and his hockey sense is unmatched. He is one of the better guys in this year's draft when it comes to creating numbers from the blue line. Meanwhile, you have Zayne, who is more of a well-rounded two-way guy who is as well good with his mobility. He scored a lot of points this previous season. His passing, his breakouts, they're very good. You could say early on in their careers that it wouldn't be surprising if Zayne and Zayne Parekh produced similar numbers in their 19, 20, 21-year-old years if they make the NHL, but long-term, I do think Parekh has more offensive potential. Zayne is just a bit safer, especially outside the offensive zone. They're both very talented guys and could become top-pairing players, but one is a lot more offensive than the other, one is a lot more transition-based than the other, while also providing good offensive numbers, so it's really a toss-up here. There's a reason so many people say these defensemen in the 2024 draft can be interchangeable, with the exception of maybe Levshunov being the #1 guy. But let's go over to the other points here when it comes to the Canadiens. If you want to talk about the Demidov conversation, he has some of that Russian factor around him, Basu notes. Specifically, some teams are concerned about what SKA will try to do and keep him. Both of his brothers play for SKA as well. This also was something that we had talked about with the Matvei Michkov conversation a year ago. It was such a big deal. Russian factor, SKA, is he going to even be able to leave? We'll see what happens with Michkov by the time this summer wraps up, but for Ivan Demidov, that certainly is an obstacle here as well. You can debate whether or not it really is something worth thinking about, because with Matvei Michkov, we're already seeing rumors that he's going to be able to come over to North America and play in Philadelphia next season, but we gotta wait and see with that. For Montreal, though, they weren't really willing to take that risk last year. It doesn't seem like they're going to be able to do that this year, even if Demidov is a player available, considering that they would probably take Lindstrom over him, and they also do have some other defensemen that they would like. It's unlikely, though, that Lindstrom and Demidov would both be taken in the top 4. One of them is probably going to be available, and if Demidov is the guy, then okay, great. The Montreal Canadiens will defy their expectations and take the guy that we didn't think they'd do. Additionally, Basu writes about how Adam Douglas, who is the Director of Sports Science and Performance, was quietly let go by the Canadiens. He's now replaced by Dale Labians, who worked with him for a decade. So these are the bullet points provided by Beefiest Bison on the Arpon Basu recent article, going over some of the guys that the Canadiens could take. This also is talked about here, but Adam McKay goes out there and says, hey, if the Habs select a defenseman, this subreddit will melt down. This sub could also realize that one of our good defenseman prospects can be traded for a very good top 6 player. Levshunov, Silayev, Dickinson, Buyan, Parekh are all exciting. Best player for me. So we'll see where exactly Kent Hughes decides to go with his defense core. You gotta remember, guys like Cayden Lindstrom, Reinbacher, these guys are great. Lane Hutson's great, but it's tough to say that anybody is immovable if you add on one of these top pairing potential guys in this year's draft. All of a sudden, if the Canadiens take another left-handed D, hey, the floor is going to be open for trades on some of these guys. If you trade Cayden Lindstrom away, you could probably get a really solid prospect or a top 6 forward caliber asset back in return. We had already seen Trevor Zegras. That guy was tossed around there in trade rumors, and the Anaheim Ducks apparently wanted one of Reinbacher or Lindstrom. So if the Canadiens do take a defenseman, there is an opportunity for them to make a really good trade to free up some spots on D and add some extra forwards on top of that, but of course we'll have to wait and see. For now, though, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the Canadiens and this draft update in regards to who it is that could be the next Montreal Canadiens 5th overall pick. Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. and bye.